Good evening. I'd like to call an audit committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Board Member Johnson,
Present.
Chairman Pygott,
Here. Board Member Johnson, could you lead us in invocation?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair. Oh, Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you asking for your guidance and your direction, asking for a complete miracle. And Father, as we embark to do your business this day, Lord, give us great ideas. Give us neutral buy-in for each other to make this city be the great city it should be. All these things we ask in your son's name. Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance. All right. We currently do not have a quorum for today to where we can move on the approval of the minutes. Other voting member, Board Member Fern, could not make the meeting tonight. So will we? It's only three.
There's only three members and we got two.
Hold on, Madam Attorney. So we only need 2 out of 3 to vote on any items. Clerk or attorney, we weigh in on that.
according to the city attorney, we have 5 members, but we only have 3 voting members. So we don't have a quorum to vote on any items.
So
We need a majority of the entire board, according to the attorney.
we need the board, and I know that Board Member Pate isn't here, and also City Manager removed Hepburn. Could you speak to that for the record?
With regards to the removal of Board Member Hepburn?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I cannot speak to that. That would have to be deferred to the city manager.
Okay, all right. So at our next meeting, we'll discuss that. With that, let's move on to public comment.
Pursuant
Mr.
to
Mayor,
Yes,
I'm sorry, regarding the quorum, I think I misunderstood Ms. Lawson earlier, and it would be 3 of the voting members. That would be what we would be taking the total. And so if you guys have 2 there, I thought there would only be 1 person there. But you guys have 2 people out of the 3 voting members, then you should be able to vote.
okay. All right, then do I have a motion to approve the minutes for December 4th, 2020?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to move the minutes as printed.
All right, I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Board Member Johnson,
Yes.
Chairman Pygott,
Yes,
motion passes.
all right, let's move on to public comment.
Pursuant to Florida Statute 286.0114, the Audit Committee will allow public comment on any matter either identified on this meeting agenda as requiring action or anticipated to come before the committee for action in reasonable proximity to this meeting. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, and the assignment of one person's time to another or designation of group spokesperson shall be allowed at the discretion of the committee chair. At this time, we don't have any callers
All
or
right,
participants.
none online. All right, public comment is open. Those in the audience. Public comment is closed. All right, moving on to our audit presentation. Mr. Brunson. If you can come up to the mic and just state that, that'd be fine.
Good afternoon, Tony Brunson, existing auditor. I was asked to attend to respond to any potential questions, but I was not unaware of any presentation that was expected of me. So we were here to respond to any questions.
Got it. All right, floor is open for questions. You want to cut on your mic, Board Member Johnson?
Thank you. The report, the audit statement that we're going over now is for 1920, right?
That would be correct, yes. Fiscal year ending
18 to 19.
17, 30, 19.
Mhm.
So it's actually 18 and 19.
18 and
The 20
19.
Audit remains open.
Okay, I haven't had a chance to digest all this. I was looking for the presentation.
Okay.
So I hope I reserve my comments and if something urgency come up, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Brunson, just general overall in terms of our audit, you've been with us in the past 3 audits that we've done. Could you just state for record and for edification of those watching and also our board member here, how has the city progressed in terms of getting our books together in this audit, and what type of audit finding that we received during this or opinion that we received with this audit?
Okay, it would be for the last 4 audit cycles. I think we began in 2016. And during those 10 years for 2016 and 2017, there was a no opinion, which, addressed a lot of the books and records just being unavailable at the city. And if you keep in mind, during those timelines, there were some certain investigations and things that were taking place. So much of the records, or many of the records related to the city, were just simply not available. But as we moved on to future period, brings us to fiscal year ending 18, it was a modified opinion for the physical count of assets of the city. That was one of the GASBs that was active and is currently active that required the city to physically, do a count of your assets. So over that time, we have since evolved where that count has taken place. So for the 19, the most recent audit cycle, we have a unmodified opinion, which is where you want to be. So you have what's known in the industry as a clean opinion, which clearly indicates that the information presented in the audit report meets auditing standards and is representative of the financial health of the city.
Thank you. Are there any significant findings that you believe that we as an auditing committee should be cognizant of and make sure that we are aware of moving forward as a committee?
Many of the findings have, over the past years have evolved, and your team has relieved most of them. So from a point of view of really significant items, most of those findings have been cleared. The findings that remain are more enhancements to your system and processes. And the one that's, kind of sticks out in my mind is now your accounting system, the system that's used to gather the data. It's a bit, it can be updated. And where the systems are talking to one another, the different transactions, whether it's payroll or other transactions, are talking to one another to allow proper cutoffs. Much of the information is done via spreadsheets, but so again, it's more of an enhancement. It gets done, but it can get done a lot more efficiently. And there is one ongoing recommendation, which is in improving the policies and procedure manual, which would be another substantive area, just to be sure that whatever the policies and procedures of the city are, that they're documented, which helps in transition. So as new people come aboard or others leave, they can refer to documents as to how certain transactions are captured in your financial systems.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Board Member Johnson.
If I may. I realized that 2016 was a very difficult gathering of information. In my professional opinion, it appears to me that in order to gravitate that sort of data, reconstruction of data, as much information you can find was done 16, 17, and 18, it came clearer because you had a modified opinion, and now at 18, you have an unmodified opinion, meaning that it was clearer. But your management letter is really, to me, something this committee should recommend to the commission to really look at, because that's telling the commission in a nutshell those findings that need to be corrected. Is that, am I?
I would agree, yes.
And I know from sitting and participating in Airshot, the system can get done very quickly if it's updated, because that information that we previously had to gather, and a lot of the records are not here because of some incidents that occurred previously. I think to the chair and the committee members, since you're in the budget process, that should be something crucial that you look at that will make the transition for the next couple of years or in the future go very smooth, because that system is adequated. They have tried a number of times to put some little pieces there, but if you don't have the full budget for it, we're going to be in the same place before. So since we can make recommendations to the commission, I would strongly encourage this committee through a motion, I can make it, to constantly have review of the management letter, number one, and secondly, budget for an update system that can talk to each other. Because if you got one system talking to one language and another system talking, and your procurement is not nowhere in it, it's problematic.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know, once you finish, I didn't know, do you want to have a motion? But I think those are critical things that I've constantly kind of observed that I think can be a little smoother. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, is there any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Brunson, I want to thank you for your work in auditing this city. We've been doing this, like you said, 4 years now. And it looks like we're getting better and better, and we're looking forward to completing our next 2 audits. Is there anything we should keep in mind as we move forward in completion of these last 2 outstanding audits that we have?
I think it's best said, with the comments, just working through those. I mean, those are the intent to provide enhancements and improve your environment. Until you get caught up, your people are still kind of doing double duty because they're working with old while they're trying to keep current with the new information. But, outside of that, it's everything's pointing in the right direction, and there's been significant improvements made over our tenure.
Thank you, Mr. Brunson. Is there any other comments, questions? All right, we thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, moving on to our first discussion item, the RFP for the independent auditing services. Oh, I'm sorry, my board member. You want to make your motion?
Yes, sir. I would like to make a motion that we recommend to the commission to budget for update system for financial accountability.
Before we make a motion, I think there's something that's already in place. Mr. Manager or Tri-Merge, you want to speak about that system, or whether or not we have budgeted for that financial system?
Maybe the IT might want to talk about that also. I know you've been working on that along with Jerry.
Yeah, cut on your mic.
Good evening, Audit Committee members and guests. So right now, the city is currently using SunGuard, and there are some limitations within the system. The subledger does not communicate to the trial balance, and so what happens is that there's a manual effort that takes place in having to reconcile a lot of these accounts, and some of these accounts haven't been reconciled even before 2015. So Mr. Brunson actually did 5 audits with us. He did 15 and 16, which we had a disclaimer because it was very difficult to identify records and to create those reconciliations that was needed for him to be able to opine and give us a good opinion. As we got to 17 and 18, it was a little bit different because we had a hands-on team. We had a lot of people there. And so we were able to kind of build a lot of the record keeping. And you had a team that was consistent. So those individuals are able to follow up on a lot of the things that repeated in prior years. While with 15 and 16, we couldn't find records. We found that a lot of transactions were not posted. 15 was also a transitional year with the city because I believe you guys transferred from your old bank account, Wells Fargo, to City National. So there's a gap in like data and trying to collect and coordinate that. So IT is working on identifying different vendors to see what is the best system for the city and reaching out to other cities. We have had some dialogue with the vendor to be able to see if we can get some of our questions answered. But Mr. Nelson Rodriguez, our IT director, has been the one that's been really navigating that process. And we're kind of just giving input because that system is not going to just be finance. He's looking at an ERP system to kind of assist all the different departments. So to your point, Ms. Johnson, it's to make sure that all the departments and divisions are speaking to each other in terms of the systems. And so I'll let him speak in the event he can provide a little bit more clarity on the ERP system that the city's looking at.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. So what we have done is budgeted for the entire system in the fiscal year 22 budget. The core of a system like this is the financial system. All the different systems feed back to the financial systems. So we have actually in budget for the entire project. This will not happen overnight. This is going to take at least 1 year to get the financial system up and running. I've spoken to Mr. Zier on different tactics and how we're going to handle this so we can preserve all of our historical data way beyond what's required by law forever. And we came up with a pretty solid plan to do that coming years. But we will run what we refer as parallel systems for some time. We're going to be paying for 2 systems next year, our current system and the new system. So we can strategically migrate the information that we want to migrate, but not necessarily not migrate any data that is garbage. So we'll keep the system standing so we can access run reports, continue our audits, but create a brand new system from scratch with the account and clean, and we can have the workflows from AP, from HR, procurement, building department, code enforcement, public records, you name it, it's in there. Like Ms. Lazier said, I've reached out to numerous cities. There's one name that's been thrown around pretty often as a pretty solid choice, but we have not made a decision just yet.
Go ahead, board member.
And so if I understand correctly, that's future. And it's going to take about a year to get everything, all the grits out of it.
That is beginning in October. If the budget is approved as is, the monies will be there. So we'll begin the procurement process right away in October. You know, that could take 90 days. I don't know if there'll be an RFP or if we're going to be using an existing contract. That has not been decided as of yet, but it will be brought to the commission October, November for approval. And then basically we'll get on the schedule with the selected vendor to begin the migration.
So my heartburn is that will this eliminate manual? Because I've gone to get permits and I was told I never paid. And unfortunately, the person that was working there is no longer working there, and that's another story. But I observed manual. And so I got the file myself and set aside, and I found it and was misfiled. So we got to, I think it'll be at our best interest, Mr. Chair, to find a method where you can eliminate some of the human error. Data entry can be human error, but manual input of data, especially where we're going in the future, I think it's not feasible. So any way that we can avoid and make sure that the staff have the training, because at that time, the person told me, I don't do computers. And, you know, it's 21st century, so okay, you don't do it, you know, it ain't no big deal with me. But I think at this point, we need to make sure first we got money in for training. Secondly, the manual is done away with, and that the accountability from the audit committee making recommendation to the commission is actually facts and not saying the same thing redundant, because I've observed that too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, board member. Hearing no further questions on the system. So we are clear that in this current budget, we are following through with the recommendations from Mr. Brunson, and also with your recommendation. It's already in our budget. So I guess there's no need for that motion.
One was the policy and procedure for the audit committee is more, it appears to me, and I may be in error and I do apologize, but the policy needs to be reviewed by this committee, approved, recommended, and sent on to the commission for approval. So, you know, I think they did some good job, and we had some discussion at our last meeting, but I think to just make sure that we are consistent and transparent is that we need to get that policy, we need to review it, take in advance, take the kink out of it, make our recommendation, and then forward on to the commission for approval.
All right.
And
So-
I don't think there need to be a motion. I think understanding going out to staff, that needs to happen.
All right. So to the board clerk, we make sure that on our next meeting, we have a discussion item that details the policies and procedures, to review the policies and procedures that govern the audit committee. And we'll have a discussion on any new recommendations. Is that all right? All right. All right. So any other comments or questions from the audit presentation? Okay, let's move on to our next first discussion item, the draft RFP for independent auditing services. I'm gonna present, so one present, manager.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Jerry, you want us to speak on that topic, please?
Good evening again, Jerry Lazar, finance consultant for the finance department. So the city manager's office has been working on the procurement for the RFP. There's been a review of multiple different cities to gather data to determine what is appropriate for the city of Opa-locka. And so a preliminary draft was created outlining the needs of the city. And we're hoping that this RFP can address the fiscal 20 and 21 audit, and also leave an opportunity that if the city wants to continue after those two audits, it can. Normally, the audit timeline, like the audit is normally due by June of the following year, right? So the city's fiscal year ends at 9/30, and the audit is normally due to the state by June of the next fiscal year. So obviously the city's behind in the fiscal 20 audit. So one of the things that we've added in the audit RFP is that we're requesting the vendor that as soon as the contract is signed, like, because obviously you're going to go through an RFP process. Once you identify that auditor, then we're hoping that they could then maybe within 30 days submit a detailed audit plan for the 20 audit. And then we begin the audit. And then once we've actually issued the 20 audit, then they should be able to submit to us a detailed plan for the 21 audit. I don't think we'll be able to do both audits simultaneously. I think we're going to have to start one, finish one, and then dive into the next one. And so the RFP reflects that. The RFP reflects requesting that the vendor or the contractor, once an award is made, to then provide us with a detailed audit plan so that we could then start with the audit. And then once that audit is completed, has gone through the commission. And our goal is to try to see if we can do it by the December to February time zones, if we can finalize that 20 audit. And then once we're done with that, we jump into the next one. I will say that the benefit of having a team that's been here for continuation is that there's not a lot of learning curve for the team because we already know what to record, right? So a lot of the fiscal 21 transactions have been recorded. To Mr. Brunson's point, we have been having to work on multiple years at one time. We're working on 20 and 21, but I think I feel really good about the fact that we've been able to get a substantial amount of data in the system for fiscal 20 and 21. So I think we're ready to be able to move forward to do the 20 audit, and then we'll have to then start with the 21 audit.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Board Member Johnson.
Thank you. So if I understand it correctly,
Mhm.
the 20 is really taken care of without the RFP of 21.
No, that's
The RFP that he's working on now, this RFP here is for 21,
this RFP is for 20 and 21,
20 and 21.
right?
The only heartburn that I have, I'm just seeing it.
No, please.
And secondly, this masterpiece that we're looking at, I don't know about anyone else, but I need time to digest it. Because, and then I need to compare what I have from 19, 18. I want to do a thorough, because the audit committee has been domed up until the chair really said, you know what, let's look at this. You haven't had it. I mean, it has, well, it's been around, but it has not been active.
So let me just share
Okay.
that. Yes, the city has not had an RFP out, but you can't look at the RFP from many years ago. An audit RFP from 10, 15 years ago is outdated. So that's why we looked at local cities. We looked at the city of Miami Gardens, we looked at the city of North Miami. There's other cities that the city looked at to put this RFP together. So a lot of that language is coming from RFPs from existing cities that currently have RFPs on the street. Like, for example, Miami Gardens just issued their RFP. North Miami is in the process of issuing theirs. So I will say that there's confidence in the data that's inside of this RFP because it's mimicking a lot of what other cities of similar size and scope are doing. So the standards and the rules for auditors are primarily the same. It's a government audit, it's a municipal government audit. There's certain laws and rules that they have to follow at the state level, the federal level. It's the same for one city versus another. We may not be having the same transactions as they do, but a lot of the information is relatively the same. So I will just say that the data is coming from current cities. I think if Ms. Lawson can correct me, I think she looked at a few cities, more than 2. Those are the 2 that come to my mind because those are the ones that I looked at. And so the data in this RFP is comparable to other cities that have existing RFPs out for audit services. So I agree that you should take a look at it and digest it, but I don't believe that you should really be looking at RFPs from, 8 years ago. You really want to look at comparable RFPs for existing cities in your surrounding area to compare this to. That would be my thoughts and recommendation on that.
Mr. Chair.
Johnson.
To the committee, I, as a professional, would never go back and look at antiquated information. That's number 1. Number 2, I need a chance to really do due diligence on what is in front of me. I take it very serious, very, very serious as being a part of the men, very thankful. However, my comparison, you don't know where I'm going with it. And so, although I take this information as being solid, but I think the recommendation according to the Florida Statute of Audit comes from the committee. So I really don't feel comfortable at this time, Mr. making a recommendation, going to the commission on something we just fly by past. And I think the information that's coming from staff is excellent, but I need to feel comfortable to say yay or nay to it.
Sure.
And at this point, being given it the day of, although it was sent to me, it's a big file. I don't have the capability at home to open it. A lot of people couldn't even open it because it's too large. But this type of information, and although I agree, because the current provider was also around when I was around. And so I know of his work, I know of his knowing of the city, but as we go forward, I think that some other things need to be put into it, and I need an opportunity to look at it.
I agree. No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other
All right.
questions?
Yes, we've been through several audits recently in the past. And we knew that we were behind 3 years in audits for past 2 years. And at no point in time did we say we're going to have them all together. I think we did approve a contract at the beginning for Mr. Brunson to complete a few of the audits. And there were some challenges, I believe, I think I remember something from the Financial Oversight Board asking us to do a RFP and also have this audit committee to review the RFPs. So with that in mind, that we literally have been going through this for the past several years, why can't we just use the same model we had for the past RFP and just change 2021, 2020 and keep it moving? Why do we need to do more than that?
So from what I understand, the initial audit for Mr. Brunson, I'm not over purchasing, but we can certainly have other people opine on this. But from what I understand, the city piggybacked the 2015 audit from Miami Gardens. So you piggybacked on an existing contract with another city to start your audit. Mr. Brunson came in and his engagement was to do the 2015 and 2016 audit, if I'm corrected, if I need to be, please. And when Mr. Brunson came in, they could not audit anything because the records were not in a state to be audited, which is why you needed additional support in the accounting team to put that together. So Mr. Brunson backed away for a little bit until the city could get its books and records together. Then he came back to audit later after that. Then to do the 17, 18, and 19 audit, the city was able to use, I guess, perhaps emergency procurement to be able to do the 18, 19, the 17, 18, and 19 audit. But that is not something you want to do going forward. That's why you have to do a new solicitation. Because remember, you were piggybacking off of the city of Miami Gardens. So now this is a new competitive solicitation that's going to go out in the street. Before, that was not a competitive process. Well, I don't want to say it was a competitive process. It was piggybacking off of another city that was using Mr. Brunson. So when you piggyback off of another contract, you use the vendor on that contract. So that's why Mr. Brunson was selected. So now you want to competitively bid with a new solicitation that goes out on the street where multiple audit firms will be able to submit a response.
So you're saying this 18-19 audit was not competitively bid?
Sir, it was this,
Oh, because I must have, okay, my mind is.
we would have had an RFP process.
Okay, all right. All right. So how long will it take us to get this bid out and completed? What is needed in order for us to get this bid, this RFP out as soon as possible?
So I've never handled procurement on the city side, putting an RFP, but as an audit firm that has pursued RFPs of this magnitude, they usually are between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the time frame. Usually there's a pre-bid meeting where people can ask questions, and then the city then responds with comments. Sometimes there's an extension provided. Sometimes there's not an extension provided, which sometimes that causes the term to be a little bit longer if needed. Addendums go out, so that could easily be 4 to 8 weeks. So the quicker we can get this out, the quicker the city can move forward with getting the RFP out. So from what I understand from the Florida statute, this committee was created to help create the criteria and selection, like the evaluation criteria within the RFP. So that's why we're bringing it before you, so you can review the evaluation criteria, look at what we've put in there to evaluate the firms that will submit. And if you're okay with that, then we move forward with putting that on the street or out to the public. I mean, then it goes to your commission then, I mean, you give a recommendation to your commission then ratifies and approves it, and then it can be released. So until that happens, I guess the next step, if you're not going to approve this tonight, will be to have the appropriate time to review and then schedule your next audit committee meeting so that you can then approve it and then bring it forward to your commission to get approved. Because until the commission approves it, it's not going anywhere.
Mr. Chair,
Board Member Johnson?
I would like to suggest, I know it can be done by next Tuesday, I can, go through it. I do remember some discussion on the internal controls. I do remember, and because you're piggybacking off of another city, which been existing in some of the language that was in Miami Gardens on, really sometimes didn't, in my opinion, didn't pertain to us. So it would give us time enough for your meeting on next Wednesday, or your next Wednesday, right? You will give you time enough then to add it to the agenda and make the recommendation to the commission so we won't get so far behind. But we need to make sure now, as we're going out, that this blueprint represent us and all the inner tools that may have been in Miami Gardens on, we now have an opportunity to address it in our own. And I think that's my heartburn, that's my recommendation to the committee. So when we go forward, we got it crystal clear. And all our internal controls need to be in place. And procurement kept coming up of the 97, 94 findings. Remember, it was some conversation that we need to make sure that whatever needs to be done, it's a part of our record.
I would like to hear from management in regards to procurement, those involved in procurement, to clearly state for us the what else needs to be done to have this before this audit committee, and also move forward to the commission, and what exactly needs to be done and when those things can be done by. And the reason why I'm asking this question is that over the past year, we've completed one audit. Before that, we were completing multiple audits in within a year. And we have 2 audits that are outstanding. Well, 1 audit outstanding, and 1 is need to be done by June 30th. And if we're able to do that over the next 9 months, then we are putting ourselves in a very good position to get out of this financial oversight. So if we're able to get this stuff done, and our finance department is strong, we have all the check boxes to be able to get out of financial oversight by the end of next year. And I think that is a great goal that we should do as swiftly as possible. But this audit is one of the #1 things for us to move that forward. And I do not want us to have to go for a whole nother year in completing 1 audit and then be behind again come this time next year. So could you give us a very clear understanding, 1, 2, 3, what do we need to do in order to get this RFP before this audit committee? So as Ms. Board Member Johnson said, we can review it, make sure it aligns with what we would like as a city, as an audit committee, and we can push that before the commission. We have 2 meetings this month, 1 next week, and then the 1 2 weeks later. And I think it should be no later than the meeting on the, I think that's the 28th, I believe. 28th. I'm not mistaken. The meeting on 22nd. No later than the meeting on the 22nd. So what needs to be done for that to happen?
I'm gonna let Ms. Jerry Lazar talk about that a little bit because she has presented to us a scheduled work plan for fiscal year 19 and 20. And I think she might could elaborate a little bit more of what time she thinks it's gonna take to get the 21 audit done. But since she's already started working on it, I'm asking that she expressed that to you all now.
That's our next discussion item. I'm particularly focused on what needs to be done for this draft RFP that we have before us to
Right.
turn into the actual RFP that we as a committee can do. And Ms. Lazier has talked about what, out of her experience as outside counsel or tri-merge to provide us. However, she said it is solely for our procurement. And I know procurement is run completely
Right.
through the manager's office.
Right,
So
and-
if you can give us that detail.
I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that, but I'm also let Ms. Lawson speak on that. So she's responsible for our RFPs, the procurement that's coming out of the manager's office. But I think it was stated by Ms. Lazar that first, the audit committee has to approve the RFP. You have to approve it. Once it's approved, then we can move from that and come up with a timeline that's appropriate to get it done once you approve it. But I'm going to ask that Ms. Lawson kind of give us some idea what that might look like based upon when you decide you want to approve the existing RFP.
Good afternoon. So the draft before you, the draft of RFP was prepared for the audit committee to review, not take action on it today, of course, but to review. We can schedule another meeting to get your feedback, or if it's possible, if you can provide feedback in writing so we can make those revisions. And at the next audit committee meeting, it'll be already prepared for the audit committee to vote on. Once the audit committee votes on it, we'll have a recommended, an agenda item to the city commission requesting approval to issue the RFP. After that happens, the state has to approve it. We can request the state to review that legislation, do on an expedited basis. And once we get state approval, it will go out on the street, advertised for 21 days. Depending on the amount of questions we receive, if we receive a lot of questions, of course, we have to respond to those questions and allow the proposers enough time to complete their packet based on our responses. So we may have an addendum. Normally, when we do have a lot of questions, the addendum, it will push the RFP due date probably back a week or so. So, but typically the RFP will be out for 21 days. Enough state approval to complete their packet based on.
Mr. Pate.
This is Ms. Lawson. Ms. Lawson, you can finish and I'll interject after you're done.
Okay, so let the record reflect that Board Member Pate is on the call.
Okay. So once the RFP is closed, we'll have a evaluation committee meeting to rate the proposals. Then it will go for commission approval. I'm sorry, it'll go back to the audit. It'll go back to the audit committee for approval, then to the city commission for final approval.
Okay, so my specific question is about what is needed from this committee now to move this from a draft RFP to an RFP before us that we can review, do our job as a board to say we appreciate, we like this, and move it on to the commission. That's the question on the table.
I can answer that.
Okay.
It is before you to be approved and to be recommended for approval to the commission. From what I understand, you guys just received it and you need time to digest it, but we believe it's in its final form. We believe that this is in its final form. We've reviewed it over the last 60, 90 days. So we have reviewed it thoroughly from our perspective, from the city side, and it is brought before you in complete form for you to review and evaluate it.
Okay, so Board Member Johnson, I understand, so you have need some time. How much time will we need in order to get your thoughts? Because upon my review of this, I do not see anything outstanding that is a red flag in order to secure. I like the fact that we are securing an auditor as long as it is abiding by our laws to get someone who can do multiple audits under one RFP. I think that's great because we need this done as soon as possible. So at the moment, there has been nothing that I reviewed in this that is outstanding or red flag. So as the tri-merge representative Ms. Lazier has spoken, it's a final form. We can move it right now if we would like, but we need more time. We can do that, and we can just schedule a meeting as soon as you're ready.
Okay. So normally I'm really good in speed reading because I was a federal mediator, so I'm real good in speed reading. However, I just want to make sure this is our best. For the record, I think that the current CPA did at least 5. This is the 5th audit, not 1.
15, 16, 17.
So don't
18,
shortchange
19.
us.
Yes.
They did 5.
Yes.
So not 1. So secondly, I realized that this is in a draft format. And my experience of the draft format, we have normally had some workshops to participate in the drafting of this. And this is a draft format. So I'm just under the experience of if the audit committee would have participated through a workshop with staff, there should be no question now. We can just say, put the approval on it, a recommendation, and goes to the commission. That didn't happen. Although I agree with I mean, just speed reading through it, it looks fine. But at the end of the day, the audit committee is really the one that says to the commission, this is our very best. We have looked at everything, and I can't personally, as a committee member, say that at this point. As I mentioned before, by Tuesday or even Monday of next week, because I'm really good. My IQ is 152. I'm really good. I can have my part done. And at that point, I can get back with staff, with the city manager or the consultant and say blah, blah, blah. And if everyone agree, we move forward to the commission. But I need that comfort level to say I've done my very best as a board member. Thank you.
All right. So this is that workshop where we can say those things. We can bring this back up and also make any changes at this next meeting. So do you want to move this item to Monday or Tuesday?
Monday's
Which
a holiday.
one? Huh?
Monday's a holiday, sir.
All right. So I guess Tuesday. All right. That doesn't work either. Okay. All right. So with that, if it's not before the next commission meeting, what is on the 8th, we have more flexibility. So we can probably do something the following week. And will that give us enough time if we do it with that following week? Well, to put it on the commission agenda?
Mr. Mayor, Ma'am, Mr. Chair.
Board Member Pate?
So if we go into next week, we're actually going to go beyond the timeline where agenda items need to be submitted. So most likely what will need to happen is it will be an add-on to the second commission meeting this upcoming this month. It would be my recommendation if there's pause in regards to the document, as Ms. Lawson stated and as Mrs. Adair stated, we can vote conditionally to approve it, waiting for further comments from our fellow board member that needs to review the document thoroughly. If a review can be done between today and Tuesday, then I can potentially add it on and do an add-on Wednesday as an emergency item, because we are in financial emergency and procuring an auditor is an emergency item related to emergency. I'll do the declaration, appropriate declaration, and it can be added to the agenda on Wednesday. So we can go ahead and put it on the street immediately. I call the state and probably get a 1-day approval in regards to them approving the document that the commission approves, and we can get this on the street quickly. And I would say probably put it on the street for a short period of time, because this is a very popular type RFP where auditors are looking for work in various different places. So I don't think we'll have a hard time for getting people solicited to do the audit, especially the state of the past audit that was just done. And if that timeline is adhered to, we can have an RFP on the street, and we can have a review board review the results, and everything be copacetic by mid to end of October. Have somebody in place, a recommendation for the commission.
Board Member Johnson, are you comfortable with preparing with making a motion to approve this RFP on the condition of any other comments that you can make before the next meeting? And then I will personally, as a member also of the commission, I will make sure that any comments or changes that you have recommended through the clerk be discussed at the commission meeting. And then you can also come before us during the next commission meeting and state those things during citizens forum to make sure that we follow through with those recommendations.
Okay, so I agree with everything except for coming as a citizen.
Oh, as
Because
a board member.
As a
You can't
board
come as a
member,
board member.
I think I won't do that.
Yes.
Anything
come as a
that I
board
need to discuss, I think I need to discuss openly here at our meeting. However, I will like to entertain a motion for the recommendation to be forward to the commission with the understanding that if any revision should come up, it should be addressed prior. That's my motion. I need a second.
All right, I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Board Member Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Pygott,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, moving on to the timeline for the audit. We have before us start a document. We want to review that document, give us some understanding into this work plan for the 1920 audit. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, Ms. Lazier, I ask for you to do the overview of the timeline. Is that what you're asking, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Lazier?
Yes, okay, sure. So, we were waiting to see what would happen. Obviously, this is still open. The solicitation for the audit firm needs to go out in order for us to be able to start working with the firm. So we anticipated that it would take up until maybe sometime mid-October before you would select a firm. So we believe that that's sufficient time for us to be able to work through our own work plan internally that we have been doing as a team to get the books ready. Because our goal is, as soon as you hire a firm, we want to be able to stay, sign contract. Once contract is signed, we want them to begin their process. And usually that is the audit firm going through a planning process, sending a list of things that they want us to gather, which they call their PVC list. And then we'll start working from that. Most audit firms will not provide that to you until you're under contract. So if mid-October or by end of October, the city identifies a firm, then I believe in that contract, we should be explicit about when we want the turnaround time for the detailed audit plan, which is one of the items that we have listed within the RFP. So we want a detailed audit plan from them. And then we will begin the audit process with that firm. Every firm is different. So I will say that because it is being competitively bid, if Mr. Brunson is not the successful awardee, if his firm pursues it or not, a new firm is going to have to come in and gain an understanding of the city that they do not have. So I believe there's going to be a learning curve for the new firm to come in, and especially since the fact that we're not using we're using an antiquated process, it's going to take them time to gain that understanding. So I want to say most audits can take about 12 weeks. So my time frame was, okay, if we started, let's say end of October, we have November, we have December, we have January, we should be done by January, issue, and then move on to the next audit. Again, If the firm can do it within a 12-week timeframe, which is on average something very realistic, then we can then move on to the next audit. And so then in the RFP, we've also stated, once that audit is issued and goes before the commission, we want them to turn around with the next detailed audit plan so that we could begin the next process. And that's why you want to use the same firm, right? So you don't want to pick a firm and then have to then select another firm. Most RFPs allow for you to do the audit for multiple years and then with an extension. So that's what we want to get out of this type of an engagement, because any firm that comes in, you want them to gain that understanding very quickly and to be able to have them stay on board to do the next audit, especially if you're going to be going through some kind of ERP conversion. You want the same firm in place to manage and navigate that process with you. That's not when you want to be RFPing a new audit and bringing a new firm in when you just went into a new ERP system. You want the same existing firm before the ERP to work with you after so that they have that continuity.
Okay, any questions or comments? Board Member Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's why I think it's so critical. Say, for example, all your timeline date, you may not have an actual date, but I think it's critical to see whatever firm you may bring in, whether it's the current or future new one, that they will be able to reconcile accounts and prepare the audit within 30 days. I mean, it needs to be, I'm just using it as an example. Now, with everything, with the economy being the same way, how it is now, financial people are looking for work. I don't think to say no one can't do it, but I do think whatever we are expecting out of any vendor, it needs to have a timeline. I am not a person to be in agreement with to be announced or to be determined. I'm just not there. I am and I think the city needs to get there, where if you want someone to provide you in 120 days, you may do it in 90 days, and they may just fast, rapidly prepare it. But I think it gives too much leeway to say to be determined. For example, when it comes down for the staff analyzing anything, once you get it, is it 30 days you're going to do it or 60 days? I think it just leaves too much room for non-accountability. And I think in order for us to be that future city that exceed and be able to compete, we have to change some things. And I've seen it. Sometimes I don't say anything, but I just think in mine is too much to be determined. Once you get it on your 30th day, on your 35th day, staff is going to prepare and they got 30 days to do it. Bottom line. If not, they should get some accountability. And that's my heartburn, is that we have put out RFPs and people are not able to perform their duties. And we being a part of a team, Opa-locka team, we find excuses and we say the same thing over and over. If it's going to be a new day in town, a new chef, a new chief, a new whatever, we have to do that. And I don't see that happening with the same results. So that's my heartburn, Mr. Chair.
I wholeheartedly agree, Board Member Johnson. And definitely don't want you to have heartburn. There's a few things that I said tonight that have heartburn, and we don't want you to have no heartburn, all right now? So we need to make sure this gets taken care of. And I wholeheartedly agree. We have this plan. The majority of this timeline is to be determined, which I do think and I wholeheartedly agree with Board Member that that's a problem. So can we put, even if it's not dates on here, what is the days? Is it going to take 2 weeks for staff analysis and review? Is it going to take 30 days? What is that timeline so that we're very clear? And at least for phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, we should be very clear about how long it would take us to do this. We basically have the same team that's done the past 5 audits. And with this 1920 audit, we have the same team that was working that 1920 year, basically, that's been here. So what is that timeline that it would take for the time for phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 in terms of days or weeks?
So again, the reason why we left it to be determined initially is because we didn't know what was going to get approved here. We don't know when the RFP was going to actually be presented to the commission and when it would actually then go, and there's also an addendum process. So, you know, obviously I don't know what that process is going to look like when you actually do have firms submitting an RFP, responding to an RFP to the city of Opa-locka that has not had a competitive solicitation for quite some time. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but I can give you some highlights. So for example, I think Ms. Lawson just shared with us at least phase 2 will take 3 weeks, right? So let's say 4 weeks, right? So if you approve this next week on the 8th, give it about a week or so to be able to turn around. The 15th, maybe you have it released through Demand Star or the different vehicles that you utilize to solicit your vendors. So the 15th, and then let's say you do a 3-week turnaround time, that means first week of October. And then once you get the RFPs, you're then gonna have to have an evaluation committee. Is it 3 weeks, the entire time frame to just get the information from the vendors, and then after the 3 weeks, then you start your evaluation process? Okay, so then mid-October, you're gonna have an evaluation selection committee that's created by the city manager's office. So let's say October 15th. So by October 15th to the end of October is when that evaluation committee is gonna go through the RFPs, they're gonna rate them, they're gonna put their recommendations together, and then they're gonna present those recommendations to this audit committee. This audit committee then determines whether or not they agree with that. If they do, then you make a recommendation to bring that to the full board. If that can be done in a 2-week timeframe, then by November 1st, ideally would be when you want this new firm to start. So then new firm starts, I think it should be a 12-week process from the day that they give us that detailed plan, which we probably should do. As soon as they sign that contract, maybe within 10 days, they need to give us a detailed audit plan. You know, that's what I typically see, 7 to 10 business days, a detailed audit plan. And once they give that detailed audit plan, I don't think the audit should be more than 12 weeks. I don't think it's a month, but the audit process is 12 weeks. So let's say that they are starting somewhere around the 1st or 2nd week of November, December, right? So it's still November, December, January, that's 3 months. 12 weeks is 4 weeks in a month. You're still looking at the firm ending to the audit sometime at the end of January and then coming to present to you maybe early February. So that's what I had mentioned earlier. So 12 weeks for the audit process to begin once you identify that firm. So if you're able to identify that firm by November, the 1st week of November, then you got to give them time to do their detailed audit plan, or you could make it as a condition. Wait a minute, let me back up for a minute. We have the detailed audit plan in the RFP, so they should know to give that to us once they're selected. So, I mean, once they sign a contract, then you have to determine when they're going to give you that detailed audit plan, right? Because even when you get in the RFP, you can still make changes, right? You can still make changes to that detailed audit plan with the auditor. So I still say we should end somewhere around the beginning of February, please.
And that's why I think need to be recognized. by the
Yeah,
chair.
I think I saw you.
okay, hold on one moment. So if this is approved, this RFP is approved on the September 8th meeting. It is out for 3 weeks. It should be able to be before us by the October 13th meeting for us to approve, because that would give from the 8th, that's the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th, the 6th, that is, and then the 6th of October, and then the 13th. That's 5 weeks from the 8th will be the 13th.
Okay.
So we should be able to get this RFP out and get it reviewed within 5 weeks.
Well, I think we
Is
said.
that too fast of a time?
I think we said, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it gets approved on the 8th, there's an administrative process to get it through Demand Star or to get it solicited, to publicly advertise it. So that's why I said after the 8th, the following week, give it a week to do your advertisement process.
Mm-hmm.
That is the 15th, I believe. What is the?
Yes.
That's the 15th. And then 3 weeks from there is the time frame that you work with those solicitors, those firms who are those prospective contractors that you're gonna work with them to allow them time to review the RFP, ask questions. If you have to answer questions, there's a back and forth that happens. And I presume that because we have not competitively solicited this and the financial emergency and other things that are going on with the city, which is not happening with other cities, it may take longer than 3 weeks. I'm just trying to give you the
All
right
right.
frame of mind here
So
because
then,
they're gonna have inquiry regarding those things.
all right, so then how about this? 'Cause I want to be clear about our next meeting, and hopefully our next meeting that we have as an audit committee will be to review the audit selections that's out. So if we have that meeting the week of October 18th, we should be able to also put that on the agenda for the October 27th meeting.
Okay.
All right, and once that's approved, then as said by October 27th meeting, that auditing company can start on November 1st. And then they have a 3 to 4 month process to get that completed.
Well, we want it done in 3 months. We don't want it to go
Yes,
into
3
4
months,
months.
definitely 3 months, but I understand it's the holiday time too.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So we do get that. We do understand that may be a challenge.
And then if
So,
we-
all right, so then if that's where we are with this, I'm comfortable with that. If we can get this on the agenda for the September 8th meeting, we get it out by the 15th. It is on the street all the way up until the October, say the 15th, October 6th. That week it is reviewed. That gives 2 weeks for staff to propose everything. And then on the week of the 18th, we have our meeting as an audit committee to approve it, whoever we would like for recommendation to the commission, and the commission approve it on the 27th. Board Member Johnson?
Right, I agree, and I think we need to stick with the 4 months, but aim for the 3 months. And then
Great.
secondly, for staff, currently here now, but I think it needs to go into our policy. And that's why it's crucial with the policy to put these dates in every 30 days, 90 days. But I think the lesson learned from this, my lesson learned is that to staff is to come up with a logic model. That logic model, because of you have previously did at least 4 years, you would know how long did it take you to do this, and put it into a logic model. So therefore, we won't be guessing. We won't, because why I said it, you stuck very much on 12 weeks. And that's because of your expertise and your professionalism, your experience. So we need to take that into a logic model so that the audit committee will be comfortable, like the chair was saying, 4 months and then 90 days, because when the holiday comes around, meetings are skipped, companies sometimes they close out, so leave that leeway in it. But I think that all of this great information and meeting of the mind, it needs to be in the policy and procedures.
I agree.
And I think what us having now is not a workshop, this is actual meeting. This is the opportunity time for you guys to take notes, go back and look at the video and incorporate it, because we have not made motion. We are taking on good faith that you have heard our concern, and now it needs to be integrated into the policy and procedures. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. All right, so we reviewed the timeline. Any other comments, questions on the timeline?
I will state that typically most cities end at 9:30 and most, they request for the audit to be completed by March 31st. So it's usually a 6-month timeline that most firms are working to get the audit done. So if you notice, when you look at the RFP, we actually said year 1, year 2, we understand that you're working with us to meet our deadline and we're late, right? But we said if we go with you to do the 3rd audit, then we want to resume a regular schedule audit period. And so that's what we have highlighted in that RFP as well. So I think it was us thinking, okay, once we get up to speed and we're current with the 21 audit, then we can move forward with having an appropriate timeline. But we're also trying to provide some grace and some concession for the fact that we don't really know what some of these firms are going to come and say during that process, right? During that RFP process.
Got it. Any other questions, comments,
Yes,
timeline?
Mr.
Board
Chair-
Member Johnson?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I don't feel comfortable with a 3-year audit firm. Let me give you an IE. I think you buy yourself in of high expectations when the commission does not have the flexibility to determine through accountability or report card, because I've heard so often from administration that, which the commission approved, you're stuck with them. So I want clarification, because you stated, if I heard correctly, and you know we got this mask on, so that affects my hearing too. For 1 to 3 years. This RFP is for how long? That's number one.
We wrote the RFP for 2021, but what I'm saying to you is you can add renewal options on there. Renewal option is not automatic. It just means if you're content with the firm, you want to put that as a clause in your contract so that you don't have to go and RFP it again. Let's say you do use the firm and you're happy with the firm for the 1-2 year audit period, right? Well, then if you put the renewal option, which is what most cities do, they put a 2-3 year renewal option to be renewed every year. Then if you like that firm, you can just exercise the renewal option, right? And if you're not happy with that firm, you don't exercise that renewal option and then you RFP it again. So I think it gives us enough time by June 30th, 22, that if we go through 2 audits with this firm, which we need, because we're trying to fast forward this, right? We go through this process with this firm. If we're happy with the situation, then we would want to retain that firm and exercise a renewal option and lock some kind of pricing in if we can. If we are not happy with that firm, then we will not exercise that renewal option. So that's something that you can do. We're not at the contract phase yet with any of these firms. So there's still time where you can make that recommendation to add the renewal option. And if we're happy with this firm, then you can continue with them. If you're not happy with the firm, then you create a new solicitation.
Okay, so with that being stated, I think it's always crucial to have fresh eyes. You will have your reporting system updated, and should their performance exceed the commission expectation, then that leverage there is for the renewal. But if you continue, and that's where the city previously was, is that we kept getting the same people doing the same job prior to you, dear, prior. The same company did the same thing until we brought in a new company. So I don't want to get so, I would suggest to the audit committee not to get so familiar because the person has worked, and I have nothing against, I don't have any personal agenda to gain. But we need to have all of our ducks in order in writing so that whomever should bid on it. Because hopefully one day you will have a team of people in finance that can actually do this job and do it well to work yourself out of consultants.
Okay. So are you recommending that we remove the extension option from this RFP?
No, I think that the extension option should stay, But I think that the commission need to come up with accountability recording record, because the auditor reports to the commission, not to staff.
Mhm.
And I have not seen that in the past. So if you guys draft up, and it was a template of it, I don't know now, draft up what are your expectations out of, just not no 30-some page now, but what are your expectations? And we can work on it as a committee to make recommendation to the commission, because our job, in my opinion, looking at what we've had, is to make it easier on the commission.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So I just think, no, we can go with the renewal, let that stay in, but you need some sort of accountability, it's not just a rubber stamp.
Okay, so at our next commission, next audit meeting, we will have on the agenda to review the RFP solicitation, review the policies, and also discuss accountability. All right, so we have those three things. All right, anything else for periodic reporting? For the audit committee? Oh, I mean, for the timeline?
Yes, sir. Hold on 1 minute. I want to direct you to page 14 of the draft RFP so that you can see it yourself and let me know if you want to make a change. So it says under the first bullet point, at a minimum, the proposer must provide at least no, that's not it. Well, that's not it. Oh, term of the contract, I apologize, I'm in the wrong area. The term of the contract is anticipated to be 3 fiscal years with a renewal of 2 one-year terms. So it is 3 fiscal years with 2 one-year terms. If you want to change that, then let's use this opportunity to make that change. And I believe you did a motion to accept this, and then if you had changes, we could make those changes. So if this is not how you want it to be read, that's fine. And if you want to make a change, we can certainly do that as well.
So Commissioner Johnson, I personally think that we should limit it to 2 years because that will be the completion of all of our outstanding. And we will be in a whole different position as a city. And I think at that point in time, with that, hopefully new audits completed, will be completely outstanding, will be caught up, then we can move forward. I can see an option for a 3-year, 2 years with a 1-year option, just in case we don't have everything in order by that particular time. But for a 3-year, 2-year, I think so. You want to make a motion? Yeah, I'm trying to work with you. I want to make sure you're good and healthy, all right?
I'm helping you. Okay, so that was one of my heartburns. And I think at this point, since we're making recommendation, I can tell you that's just where I was going when I saw the 3 years. So if you change to 2 years and then have that one additional renewal, I'm fine.
So you want
Because then that gives them that learning curve to be able to do whatever.
Okay,
Because
so,
by then the city will be out of all of this.
all right, let's make a motion to make that recommendation. Go
My
ahead.
motion, I think she was gonna say. something.
Can you clarify again? So you're changing the 3 to 2,
With the
Mhm.
1 year.
With 1-year renewal.
1 year, okay, just 1 year, okay, that's fine.
You
And it
wanna-
may be the same person.
So you wanna make
my
that motion?
motion is for 2 years service provider with 1-year renewal,
Option.
which is approved by the commission.
All right, so I have a motion, I second that motion. Madam Clerk?
Board Member Johnson,
Yes,
Chairman Pygott,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, anything
That's
else on the timeline?
that was the only thing I saw. I didn't know we was gonna get in that direction, but that will be it for me. And we already made the recommendation for it to go to the commission. That was it. I didn't know we was gonna get here. I'm glad that you drove the ship here, and that was my heartburn. And I'm
Perfect.
now have burped and I'm good.
That's what I'm talking about. We accomplished a few things today, then you're healthy too. All right, let's move on to periodic reporting. And I want to combine this periodic reporting with the audit meeting schedule. I know that in the past, we've had people talk about not having regular, consistent audit committee meetings, and then also not being able to have the reports to be able to have audit committee meeting. So could staff speak to what type of reports can we receive and review as a audit committee meeting during this process of the audit, so that we can put together a schedule? We already have in place that we will be meeting during the week of October 18th. Could you be able to speak to when would be the next ideal meeting for us as a committee to meet after October 18th?
So I'll
Mr. Chair.
share that. Sure.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Board Member Pate?
Ms. Lazier, I think this is a good time to kind of clearly delineate based on statute what the duties and responsibilities of the audit committee is. So we ensure that we stay in that scope and don't go beyond that scope. So when we talk about future meetings and future activities, we need to be clear of what the committee's responsibilities are statutorily, and how we can meet, their satisfaction as far as reporting is concerned. Because I know there's been some miscommunication. I've had a board member request financial reports that are not related to the audit. And so it's outside the scope of the audit committee. This is not a finance committee. Now, I will tell the chair that I would recommend a finance committee in the future to assist the city in keeping their finances together, assist to keeping the finances together. And I think that's, very, very important to kind of go over. So if we want a committee that kind of oversees finances, operations, and review monthly reports, we can do that. But I just want to make sure we delineate the duties and responsibilities of this committee compared to the next. Or latter, sorry.
Okay, sure. So that's exactly where I was going to head. So thank you for sharing that, sir. So the purpose of this audit committee and most audit committees by statute is for auditor selection. So it clearly states that the primary purpose of the audit selection committee is to assist the governing bodies or the commission in selecting an auditor to conduct the annual financial required audit. However, the committee may serve at other oversight purposes. So it seems as if they want the committee in place to ensure that you review the RFP, make sure that the criteria makes sense, make sure the evaluation selection makes sense, to look at the rating, the scoring, and then give recommendations on which firm is selected. That's what the scope of this is. It does state that the commission can then give you oversight over other audit related items, but it does not state anything about providing any financial reports and that type of information. And keep in mind, when you're going through an audit, the auditor is reviewing your work. It's their work papers. There's sometimes audit adjustments. There's not usually a process where they're reporting the nature of the financials. Nobody does that until a draft report can be done. And that is happening internally. That's not being issued to an outside party, right? It's not usually being made public. Let me state it that way. So from what I'm reading, this says that this audit committee is there to help select an audit firm. And once you select an audit firm, your role is inactive until the next time to select another audit firm. So that's what this is saying, unless the commission then gives you additional oversight over other audits. So for example, we're going through an operational audit. So that's the only thing I can think of that the city has. That's another audit that you might want to be over or have some input. But again, even that, you're not selecting a firm because that's being audited by the Auditor General. So I think the city commission, you already have a governing body that reviews the operational audit, that reviews the monthly financial reports down that we're submitting those timely. So this doesn't give any type of language for the audit committee to do stuff outside of selecting the audit firm, unless you go through the other purpose piece where it says may serve other audit oversight purposes as determined.
Got it. Thank you. Board Member Johnson.
I'm real confused. I don't know how we got there, but you went over the same talking points there at December 4th meeting. And so how did this come to be a part of our conversation? That's number one. And then number two, finances are public records. And so let me finish, please. It's public records. So I can remove myself from here and go down there and ask for any spending of this city. And you can't refuse me. I'm meaning staff nor the commission. You can't do that. Now, let me tell you, I sued the city 3 times and I won all 3. So I don't know how this came to be a conversation now, but I think this is not the appropriate place for it because we know our role. And should the commission decide to give us additional responsibilities, I think you need to be behooved to it. And with your 97 or 94 finding, whatever we can do as a committee or our community to help there, we need to be appreciative. And I've heard that comment, Mr. Chair, 2 times. And it made me feel so unworthy. But I'm a big girl and I don't wear things on my shoulder. So I think it minimized my even thought process to add any value. But I suck it up like a big girl and said, you know what? I was not appointed here for that. And for me being from the hood that I'm from, we don't just keep stepping back. We keep driving that boat until we get our point over. So I don't know how this became to be a conversation at this point, but I think that somewhere in it, when it deals with monies, and it seemed like a lot of things has been modified, but for my 12 years of being a commissioner, I followed every penny. They would tell you I had my calculation formula already on my computer. IT will tell you, the Shemeka will tell you. So anytime I asked anything, I had the answers. I just wanted you all to put it on record. And that's where I am really trying to recommend. I don't think nobody has done that. I think the city manager is doing an excellent job. And I know, but I never heard you all mentioned, not one time, that files had to be reconstructed. Now, with me having a little bit of finance in the post office, I know about reconstruction. The commission need to know that so they can know how to build, because that auditor normally meets with each commission separately and tell them where the findings are, which now the commission brings their appointed person and they pass that down so to avoid sunshine to make recommendations for the future. Haven't seen that. And I've been involved since 97 and been off the commission since 2014. What worked, make it better. But it seemed as though some of the new ones have come to think there was nothing here. And so whoever asks, if it's not the body, that's an independent asking. And I find myself like, what is she talking about? So I don't want any comments from staff at this point. I just want to share that with the committee and for the guests. No, the city manager is here. I don't think this is the audience for it. And I don't need to be told because that cheat sheet that staff has recommended, none of these policies have been approved, or in my opinion, I didn't vote for any, by this committee that goes to the commission to get approved. So don't come up to me with nothing that came out of Florida statute and tell me this is all you're supposed to do, because it doesn't say in the Florida statute you need to sunset, meaning the committee. It's up to the commission. Mr. Chair.
No, I made a point to put these 2 items on the agenda because since we had our last meeting December 4th, board members come in to the meeting to ask that we have another meeting. Based upon Florida statute, there wasn't a need to have a meeting. So we did not have audit committee meeting. So I wanted to be clear for the record so that we have a conversation. I know requested meetings. I know that board member Pate had said it was on the chair to call the meeting. But based upon the statute, that's where we were. There wasn't no information to meet. There wasn't no regulations to meet. So we did not meet. So I wanted to make it clear during this discussion about periodic reporting and also audit committee meeting schedule that we're clear about what our next meetings will be, what information we need to have or will have, so that we're very clear about our responsibility. So right now, at this time, we have that our next meeting will be the week of October 18th to approve the schedule. We will discuss the policies and accountability. And then at that time, we wouldn't have another meeting until the next selection of RFP, unless the commission provides more responsibilities. And I just want to make sure that's clear for all the board members. That is what we're doing so that come commission meeting we're clear. All right. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Right. Board member Pate.
Thank you. Board Member Johnson, I truly wholeheartedly appreciate your comments and your sentiments. The only reason I bring the matter up is I believe that Opa-locka is in a place where a audit committee is truly needed, as well as a finance committee truly needed. I just want to make sure that they're not intertwined to be one and the same. I would recommend to the chair that a finance committee is developed within the city of Opa-locka, and that committee could be advisory to the finance department and to the budget department, in that committee reviews the budget prior to it going to commission. They provide an advisory recommendation. There's joint sessions between the commission and that finance committee to talk about budget and other finance related items. And because we're in financial emergency and shortly coming out of financial emergency, I think is needed. I just want to make sure duties and responsibilities are delineated. And I don't think it should be additional duties to the audit committee. I think it should be a separate finance committee that's advisory and that actually has some teeth to advise the commission through vote if they agree with the budget or not. And their decision, of course, is not binding, it's advisory, but it provides the commission an extra set of eyes and ears. When this committee started, there was a committee member that was requesting all the financial reports of the city and various other financial information outside the audit. And that was outside the scope of the committee. And myself and Ms. Zaire, had conversations in regards to that. And regardless, we released the information anyway to the board member. But I just want to make sure there's a clear delineation. I do recommend a separate finance committee, but the audit committee is separate. And so I just don't want to make sure we don't intertwine roles. And Mr. Mayor, you're 100% right. The audit committee meets when there's action items for them to have. You just can't call meetings if there are no action items to have. I agree with the October date. I also agree with the audit committee meeting, going over the candidates that put in for RFP after the scoring period occurs, because I would like the audit committee to review my recommendation to the commission before it's actually physically made. So I see the 18th going over policy and procedures and items that you spoke about, Mr. Mayor. I also see a future meeting where we're going over the people that put in for RFP and what the city manager's recommendation is going to be to the city commission, and get your concurrence as a committee and moving forward. And I'll work with Ms. Lazar to come up with a proper structure of a finance committee that's advisory in nature, that has a little bit of teeth to kind of advise the commission and the citizens in regards to all financial matters.
All right. I do want to make it clear that if anybody ever requests any financial reports, no matter if they're on a committee or not, they receive those reports immediately. Simple as that.
Under
So-
what authority, Mr. Mayor? Sunshine, do open records, that's fine. Anybody put us in an open records request, they get the records. So that's not an issue. The issue that we had is somebody representing themselves as a member of this committee and saying that they had the authority to access records based on their position on the committee. Myself and Ms. Azir and my staff clearly understands that under open records, if I understand financial information is requested, we provide that information based on a PRR request. But I just want to make sure that when that request is made, it's not representative of the person's position on the committee. It's representative of just doing a PRR request of financial information. If that makes any sense. That's where it's coming from, Mr. Mayor. So like there was a situation I heard.
It's a little confusing what you're saying, but at the end of the day, no matter if someone's on this committee or whether or not there's not on the committee, if they represent themselves as somebody on this committee or represent themselves as a citizen, it does not matter what they're representing. If they anybody ask for a record, it is our duty as the city to provide that immediately, no matter what representation, title, or whatever they have. That is under Florida statute, Florida laws. That is very clear, and there should be no confusion about that, no matter what they represent. But I don't want to belabor that point. Is there anything else in terms of periodic reporting and audit committee meeting schedule? Board Member Johnson.
So for clarification, under public record requests, anyone can make a public record request now. It has been time where they can charge you for how many copies, how much resources it took to gather that information. I'm really confused with, I guess because I haven't been a part of it. But is that what we're saying, Mr. Chair?
That's what we're saying very clearly, no
Okay.
matter what it
Okay.
is. If someone requests something that is a document in this city, no matter what it is, whoever they are, whatever title they represent, they need to get that information as soon as possible.
So my clarification is that a person went through public record requests for information, because what I hear being said and what I understand the city manager to have said, I'm getting two mixed signals. And let me clear up my clarification. The policy for Florida statute says that anyone can make a recommendation through public records. That's number one. So you fill out the form, and I don't know, it used to go to the clerk.
Board Member Johnson, just to be clear, there's no need for a form. They can make a verbal request. It does not matter what it is. Our laws state if someone asks for public records, they can just ask. It doesn't matter if it's through written, through formal, or through informal. A question, that information is provided. That is the law
So they don't have to
in the
fill out
state.
the form.
They do not have to fill out no form. If they make a request,
Okay.
it is to be provided to them, period.
Is it any timeline?
It is as soon as possible.
ASAP.
And like
Mr. Chair,
the language in terms of timeline, I'm not clear about that, but it is like, for example, if someone comes into this commission meeting and says, I would like to see your agenda packet, I have to live there. Since I have it right here in front of me, I can give them to that right then and there.
Okay, so what?
Because I have it in front of me. I cannot sit up there and say, oh, go to the clerk, go do this. No, it is right here and available. It can be provided.
Okay, so for example, just for my clarification, what about someone asking and it's 100 copy or 200 or 500 copies, and staff have taken 2 or 3 hours out of their schedule to provide information? I don't know about what's going on, so I'm just trying to get some clarification.
Well, I'm not an attorney. I think that's a question we can ask our attorney at any point in
But the charter
time.
address that.
Hmm?
Doesn't the, oh, okay. I will do some research. in that.
Yeah, you can
I'll
ask that
when we
question
have
and
our
do
meeting on
that.
18th.
All right,
Okay, I'm good.
I'm good.
Mr. Chair,
Board Member Pate?
Thank you. My office will be more than happy to release any records that are requested as soon as practical. That's what the statute says, as soon as practical, not immediately, but as soon as practical. That could be 2 days, 5 days, 3 weeks, or a month, according to what time long it takes staff to do it. And individuals can be charged as well. So when we use the word immediately in these meetings, I think it misrepresents the statute. It says as soon as practical. So it's not immediately. And we can charge for those records.
Mr. Mayor,
Madam Attorney?
the language is reasonable time.
Thank you, Madam Attorney.
Mhm.
All right, let's, without, and one last thing, we did have manager, I guess, remove a member of this board, and I would like to state on record what was the process for that. And could you please explain that to us?
Mr. Mayor, per our rules for the board members have to be residents. This board member is not a resident. He rents or where he stays. He does not stay in the city of Opa-locka. Thus, he's not a resident of the city and no longer qualifies to be on the board. Also, he is advisory in nature and a non-voting member. And we'll look for providing a replacement. And that board member was my slot to recommend for the board, and I'll be doing appropriate inquiry to replace that individual.
Are you a board member, Mr. Pate?
Yeah, per statute, how you all have it, I'm advisory, I'm not a voting member.
Do you live within the city of Opa-locka?
No, but it's based on my role as city manager. It's based on my role.
Is that what the statute states?
Ms. Lazar, can you speak on our rules? I hold an advisory role as an employee, but Ms. Lazar can speak on that as well. I'm well within my authority, but Ms. Lazar can speak on it. Jerry?
Yes, just walking back. So Jerry Lazar over finance consultant, with the finance department. So it says an employee, a chief executive officer, or a chief financial officer of the county, municipality, special district or so forth can serve. So it says that your CEO or your CFO. So by virtue of him being the city manager, his role is already there, regardless of where he lives. There's no.
And for the advisory position, what does it say for the advisory position?
So it says. See, it says, however, an employee, a chief executive officer, or a CFO of the county, municipality, district, charter school may serve in advisory capacity. It doesn't say anything about, that person being a non-member of the city. So here.
What about the alternate?
Okay,
Speaking
so
about the alternate.
The alternate was, see, I had given language, and I know the city attorney gave us something a little different. So I'm not, it was drafted by the attorney. So the alternate, I'm not really sure. I can go to the city attorney to give more direction on that.
Okay, and also, what does the statute say about the board members or the manager's ability to remove someone
It does
from
not
this
go into
board?
that. That's where you have to create your own administrative policies internally to go through that. So
Okay. All right, and where's that administrative policy?
we can provide a copy to you. So as part of the operational audit, we have been working on policies since last year. And we had developed maybe about 15 to 20 policies, if I remember correctly, within the finance department. And we had been sending drafts of the policy to Mr. Pate. And he signed off on the policies. And so some of them have been provided to the operational auditors, and some of them we've held on to because we were still working on updating the policy to really make sense on what is really practical here within the city. So we submit the administrative policy to the manager, he signs off on it, and that becomes the policy. And that's what we've been sharing with the operational auditors. And we do have a copy for the audit committee because that was a policy that they wanted to see. They wanted to see that we created the audit committee, but they also wanted to see a policy for the audit committee, which is different from the statute,
Okay,
right?
so
It
at
may-
our, okay, so at our next meeting, as the board member suggested, that we review those policies. So could we have all policies from the state, the commission, our charter, and also administrative policies that govern this board at that meeting, so that as a part of our agenda packet, so that we can discuss that.
Okay, there's just one, so we can certainly provide that.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. Yeah, turn on your mic.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion for adjournment.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. I second that. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight's meeting. Have a great day. We'll see you at a regular commission meeting next week, Wednesday, at 7 p.m. All right, have a good evening. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.